What's up, guys? My name is Zlang1031, and today I'm going to talk about how I like to build my D&D characters. Now, to begin to explain how I build them, I want to show you guys a website that I go to for basically free copies of any D&D book that's currently published. So I like to go to, pull up the correct one, website's called The Trove. It's a little hard to find sometimes, but if you, even if you just look up, what I like to do is I like to look up D&D 5e books PDF, and usually around the second page of the Google search, it'll pop up with The Trove. But if you look, it has links to PDF files of just about every Dungeons & Dragons book. And if you click on one, like the one I just had up was Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, which I love the book. It's great because it helps you mix things up. New race features, new class features, new subclasses, everything. It's great. So I like to use the Trove and Tasha's, and as you can see, it pulls up basically a PDF of the entire book. And even has features for printing, downloading, all of that. I haven't had any issues with downloading anything off this website. So, I mean, do it if you want. Don't do it if you don't want to. It's up to you. It's your discretion. Whatever you do, it's not my fault. Just saying. So, that's that. Anyways, so, that's actually where I have this copy of the Player's Handbook from. I downloaded it off of the Trove website. So, to get started, we have a PDF file over here of a form-fillable D&D 5e character sheet. So, the first thing that I like to do when creating a character is I get an idea in mind of what I want to play, right? So I think I have so many builds in mind of things I would like to play, but for this video we're gonna keep it simple. So if you don't know, one of my favorite classes is the Rogue, so we'll make a Rogue character. So right here, we'll just go ahead and put in Rogue just to make things simple, okay? You can add your player name, and then race, alignment, experience points. We'll worry about all the background, worry about that stuff later. Character's name, well, just think of something basic, just anything. Anything could be your character name. Now, normally what you can do is choose your race first. If you want to choose your race first, you can choose your race, and then in the Player's Handbook, it'll actually give you examples of different names for the different races. So right here we have dwarves. So if we scroll down, get clans and kingdoms, dwarf names. So we got examples of dwarf names. Male names Adric, Alberich, Bairn, Berend, Broltor, stuff like that. And you have female names, Amber, Arten, Aldild. You got last names, or clan names, because I go by clans. And you can go from there. But for right now, we'll just choose a basic character name. So we'll go with Arlo. Why not? Simple. You can do last name, you can do clan name, you can do whatever you want. We'll just keep it simple with Arlo for right now. In this column here, you have your character stats. You got strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Now, depending on which character you want to play, it's where you want to focus those abilities. And the best way to describe, because I've always had an issue with the difference between intelligence and wisdom. So I learned, I did not make it up, I learned it online, that there is a kind of analogy you can make. And you can refer to tomatoes as all of these. Strength is how many tomatoes you can carry. Pretty simple. Dexterity, your ability to dodge a tomato. Simple. Constitution is how many rotten tomatoes you can eat before you get sick. Makes plenty of sense. Intelligence, knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put a tomato in a fruit salad. Charisma, the ability to sell a tomato-based fruit salad without it being known as salsa. Or, I threw in the extra salsa part because I think it's funny. But basically, charisma is the ability to sell a tomato-based fruit salad. And then when it comes to coming up with your stats, there are several different ways on which to do it. And 2 of those ways are actually covered here in the Player's Handbook. I'm not exactly sure where. Actually, it's probably right here. Or at least close to here. Step-by-step characters, class. Okay, here we go. Talk about ability scores. So you have what they like to call the point buy system. Okay, here we go. Here's your... Yeah, 3 high ones, 3 low ones. Okay, so... There we go. Standard. This way is called the standard array. It's a set number given to you by the book saying, here are your stat points, allocate them where you want. So you have 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. Just as a note, commoners have a 10 in every stat. 10 is the average because it goes 1 through 20. So 10 is the bare is the bare average. So 15's pretty good, 14's pretty good, 13 and 12 are okay, 10's average, 8 is below average. And then you can allocate them as you will. There's also the point buy system, which you are given 27 points to spend on your skills. You can start with 8s because they are 0 cost, and then you can go up from there. So if you've ever played Fallout New Vegas, that is a good example of the point buy system, because you start with a base number, and then you have a certain number of points you can use to upgrade those numbers. And so you can spend 1 point to get it up to 9, spend, I think it's 2 additional points to get to 10, and yada yada. Unless I'm mistaken, and it's to get from 8 to 10 is 2 points, so it's like one point per number or something like that. Then you have an actual dice rolling. There are several dice rolling methods. Some DMs, the people in charge, or dungeon masters, will have you roll 3d6. That's your number. And then you do that 6 times, 1 for each of these, and then you allocate those points where you want them. Some DMs will roll 4d6 and drop the lowest number, maybe re-roll 1s depending on the DM, and then do the same thing. You do that 6 times and allocate your points. An actual new way that I have heard about is you roll 2d6 and add 6. And the way another creator did the math, and they said that the average of rolling 4d6, drop the lowest, is like 12.5. But the average for roll 2d6 and add 6, the average outcome is 13. So technically it's a better outcome for you as a player. But I think for today, we will just go with the standard array, and we'll go with that. So for dexterity, actually I will put it down here in the bubble because it's a little less pertinent. So for right now, since we already decided we're gonna play a rogue, we will scroll down to the rogue class, and we will find out what exactly is important for rogues. Ranger. I do like playing Rangers, though. A lot of people don't like playing Rangers. I like playing Rangers for utility aspect, and they are good for damage. Okay, so we have a rogue, or a sneaky, leather-bound, knife-wielding, hood-wearing, cloak-wearing stealth-monger. We got a little bit of background as to what rogues are, and they're about skill and precision. Okay, so here it talks about rogues devote as much effort to mastering the use of a variety of skills as they do to perfecting their combat abilities, giving them a broad expertise that few other characters can match. Many rogues focus on stealth and deception, while others refine the skills that help them in dungeon environments such as climbing, finding, and disarming traps, and opening locks. When it comes to combat, rogues prioritize cunning over brute strength. A rogue would rather make one precise strike, placing it exactly where the attack will hurt the target most, than wear an opponent down with a barrage of attacks. Rogues have an almost supernatural knack for avoiding damage, and a few learn magical tricks to supplement their other abilities, and that is referring to one of the rogue subclasses that we'll get into subclasses later. Stereotype, rogues have traumatic, edgy backstories, and which makes them edgy characters and everything, and doesn't always have to be the case. It really doesn't. You can be a rogue just for the fun of it. Could be a kleptomaniac. There's a thief subclass. We'll get into those later, though. Here you have the rogue leveling chart. So for every level, you get different abilities. Your sneak attack damage goes up, which we'll talk about that in a second, and your proficiency bonus. Every character has a proficiency bonus, which even if you cross-class, which it's taking levels in different classes, your proficiency bonus goes up by your character level, not your class level, which is very handy. Okay, here we go. Creating a rogue. As you create your rogue character, consider the character's relationship to the law. Do you have a criminal past or present? Are you on the run from the law or from an angry thieves guildmaster? Or did you leave your guild in search of bigger risks and bigger rewards? Is it greed that drives you in your adventures or some other desire or ideal? What was the trigger that led you away from your previous life? Did a great con or heist gone terribly wrong cause you to reevaluate your career, and blah blah blah. It's more of backstory kind of stuff. Quick build. You can make a rogue quickly by following these suggestions. First, dexterity should be your highest ability score. Make intelligence your next highest if you want to excel at investigation or plan to take up arcane trickster, which again, that is the magical subclass, or the subclass that gives rogue magical abilities later on. Choose charisma instead if you plan to emphasize deception, social interaction. Second, choose a charlatan background. We will get into backgrounds later. But, so that tells us where we should allocate our best points. So, according to this, dexterity should be our number one, which is perfectly fine. Which that's the way I like to go when I make my rogues. However, you can put your highest score somewhere else if you really wanted to. It doesn't really work for me. I like to do what's best for the character. So, I know, according to the standard array, our highest number is a 15. So we will go ahead and put 15 in that bubble right there. And then I'll show you what we do with the boxes later. So, after that, we have to decide where we want to put our second highest number. And with that, we have to consider what do we want to do as our character? Do we want to be the super stealthy and hard to hit character that... No, wait, no. Sorry, that's dexterity. That's already maxed out. Never mind. Okay, so do we want to be the character that... Do we want to be smart? Or do we want to be wise? I like to be wise more than smart. But that's up to everyone in their discretion. Do we want to be charismatic? Do we want to be able to talk our way in and out of every situation that comes up? That can be fun. It can really be fun. So, it's up to you. As the person creating your own character, it's up to you as how you want to play this character. Which is why I like to build my character in this order. Because as you can see, I've completely skipped race. I have skipped race for the time being. We will be going back to race here very shortly because it is very important, especially for the stats that we have. So, like I say, as it was saying, intelligence next highest if you want to sell an investigation, or if you plan to take up Arcane Trickster. So investigation is whenever you want to search for something, whenever you want to search a dead body or search a room, that's usually going to be an investigation check, which is very handy. Or when you want to search for traps, as rogues are known as being the ones looking for traps all the time. Always looking for traps. That is one of the rogues' bread and butters. That would be investigation. So that would be intelligence. Or charisma. For, like I said, talking your way in and out of situations. It is really up to you. So I think for right now we will prioritize. Let's prioritize charisma. Why not? Because there are certain backgrounds or subclasses where charisma is very handy. So we'll put our next stat in there, which is 14, and then we shall remember these for later. So let's go back up. Because we found out our priorities, right? Priorities are dexterity and charisma. So let's go back up to where it talked about our skills. Went too far. Okay, standard array. That's the variant. Okay, so 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, 8. So, next is you want to figure out if you want to be how tanky, healthy you want to be. Because a lot of people will play rogues as get in, hit, get out. But sometimes you can't get out that easily. So you want to have a lot of health because you might be a frontline fighter. A stealthy frontline fighter, but a frontline fighter nonetheless. If that's not the case, maybe you want to be a wise rogue. But that all varies. So we'll just go ahead and put these stats basic. We'll put the 8 in strength because you don't really need to be a strong character unless you're choosing weapon skills or weapons. But there's a reason we are going low strength. We'll get to that. Constitution. We'll try to have a decent amount of constitution, so we'll put a 12. We'll put our intelligence as a 13. And our wisdom as a 10. Why not? So now we go up to this table right here. This is our ability scores and modifiers. So, your modifiers depict on when you do just about any action, any of these skills or saves, you have to roll a d20. And the outcome depends on whether you pass or whether you succeed at the action or fail at it. And all of these skills go off of your base stats. But not the number, the modifier. So, as you can see on the table, a score of 8 to 9 is a -1. So we'll put a -1 for our strength. Dexterity is a 15, which is a +2. So we can just put a 2 there. Constitution is a 12, which gives us a modifier of 1. Intelligence of a 13 also gives us a modifier of 1. And a Wisdom of 10 gives us a modifier of 0. And a Charisma of a 14 gives us a modifier of 2. Now, again, this is with the standard array. A lot of times, players will like to do the roll method because you can come out with very high stats. Very high. I think when I rolled my current character, I had at least a 118, which is you roll 46, take away the lowest, and your high 3 are each 6s. That's 18. So that's a plus 4 to all of your, to whatever modifier or whatever stat you're putting that in. But right now we're going with the standard array just to make it simple. Now, something you need to keep in mind, not keep in mind, a trick that I learned back when I played 3.5 in high school is an easy way to figure out your modifier is take the score number, divide it by 2. Sorry, no. So, what did I do? What did I say it was? Oh, crap, now I'm forgetting. Yeah, subtract 10 divided by 2. So, you subtract 10 from 15, you get 5. Divided by 2 is 2.5. Round down. That gives your modifier a plus 2. Let's say you have a 18 score. Subtract 10, 8. Divided by 2, 4. Same thing if it was a 19. You subtract 10, make it a 9. Divide by 2, 4.5. Round down. Simple way to figure out your stats unless you are in the negatives. It comes a little more tricky, but just something to keep in mind. So now we will look at our race options. Oh, I am way too far. I'm already in the classes. In experience, there are different ways of doing experience. There is the point method, which the Dungeon Master will award you points based off of creatures you kill, challenges you pass. They'll come up with how you receive points. Or there is the achievement method, which is once you reach a certain point in the story, the DM will be like, okay, at this point you level up. There are several other methods. One that I just heard yesterday is the players decide when they level up. But to do so, they have to take basically a 3-month break from adventuring and train themselves in order to get that level. And he came up with that in order to stop players from just training for 5 years at a time, the villains, the evil people in the campaign, will also be doing their plans seasonally. So you can't just take season and train to get like 4 or 5 levels, because the villains will be sitting there following their plans throughout that time. So it's a pretty good balancing method, I feel like. A little complicated, but it can be rewarding. Okay, so now we have our races. And races will go... a lot of races have specified alignments, but honestly, you can be whatever alignment you want with whatever race you are. It's not that important. One of the big things is ability score increase. So every race has abilities, these are your abilities scores that they favor. So big brawly characters are better at strength and constitution, while more slender characters are probably more dexterous. So we will keep that in mind because as we're looking through, because yes, you can be a half-orc rogue. It's not as common because they are not as proficient with being dexterous, but it's doable. Each race has an age range, has a size. Most playable races are size medium. There are a couple that are a size small that we'll talk about. I think in the basic player's handbook, halflings and gnomes are a size small. Possibly dwarves too. I'm not too sure. I don't haven't played a halfling since 3.5 when I was in high school, and I've never played a gnome or a dwarf. But we'll get into that. Speed. Each race has their own speed, but usually it's 30 feet in a round, which is 30 feet around is not around a turn is 6 seconds worth of combat, so it's usually about 30 feet. Language. Each race has languages they're more proficient with, and then each race, or not each race, actually maybe each race. A lot of races have sub-races which give you additional benefits. So here we have your dwarf. They're short and stout and ready for a fight. Usually portrayed with having an Irish accent or Scottish accent. It just depends on your flavor. You got clans and kingdoms, gods, gold and clan, just different motivations, backstories for the races, names, traits. Alright, so ability score increase for the dwarf race is your constitution will go up by 2. That's actually very handy for certain, handier for more races than other. Your constitution goes off of, like, implies your, like, hit points and stuff like that. So you want more hit points, you want a higher constitution. So you got your dwarves age. They reach dwarves mature at the same rate as humans, but they're considered young until they reach the age of 50. On average, they live about 350 years. You can roleplay that however you want. You can be a 25-year-old dwarf going out adventuring, or you can be a 300-year-old dwarf going out adventuring. Does not matter. Some people get finicky about it. Whatever. Alignment, we don't worry about. Dwarves stand between 4 feet and 5 feet tall and average about 150 pounds. Your size is medium. Most player races are medium size. Your base walking speed is 25 feet. Your speed is not reduced by wearing heavy armor. Some races obviously would be their speed would be reduced by wearing heavy armor. Unfortunately, dwarves have dark vision of 60 feet. So as long as you have about a little bit of light, you can see up to 60 feet ahead of you. Dwarven resilience. These are racial traits. Something that just comes with being that race. You have advantage on saving throws against poison, and you have resistance against poison damage. So advantage and disadvantage. Since it's brought up, we'll talk about it. When you make a saving throw, or a skill check, or even attacks, and you roll a d20 and you add the corresponding modifier to it. Now, if you have advantage, it means you have a better chance of succeeding, so that means you get to roll 2d20, two 20-sided dice, which are, I found my good one, which are these guys right here. They have 20 sides and 20 numbers, 1 through 20. So, with advantage, you roll two 20-sided dice at the same time, and you take the higher number of the two. It just shows that you have higher chances of succeeding. And then when it talks about you have resistance against poison. Resistance means you take half damage. Doesn't matter the cause. If it's let's say dwarves are resistant to poison. If a dragon uses its dragon's breath and it just happens to be elemental of poison, then you take half damage for it. Does not matter. Half damage. Dwarven combat training. This talks about your proficiencies. How proficiencies work is usually when it comes to like armor. If you are not proficient with that armor, you can wear it, but you're not getting any benefits from it. Like you're probably getting negatives for it mostly. So it's not really a point in doing it. However, when it comes to like musical instruments, weapons, kits of kind, like a jeweler's kit or whatever, if you are proficient with it, you get your proficiency bonus added to your roll of using that item. If you're not proficient with it, you don't get your proficiency score, which can make or break a situation. Dwarves are proficient with battle axe, hand axe, throwing hammers, and warhammers. You got tool proficiencies, which are tools and kits. Proficient with artisan's tools of your choice. Smithing, brewer supplies, or mason's tools. These are just stuff you're proficient with. You can use more efficiently than other people usually. Stone cunning, another racial skill. Whenever you make an intelligence history check related to the origin of stonework, you are considered proficient in the history skill and add double your proficiency bonus to the check instead of your normal proficiency bonus. Very handy in certain situations. You got your languages. You can speak, read, and write Common and Dwarvish, and then you get more for other things. And then you have subraces. Subraces mostly add a little extra flavor and a little extra bonuses. So it's usually better to choose a subrace than to not choose a subrace. So of the two subraces of dwarves, you have Populate the Worlds, D&D. You have hill dwarves and mountain dwarves. Choose one of these subraces. So a hill dwarf will get a bonus to its wisdom score. So not only are you getting a +2 to Constitution, you're getting a +1 to Wisdom. They also have Dwarven Toughness, another racial skill. Your hit point maximum increases by 1. It increases by 1 every time you gain a level. So every time you level up, you get to roll your character's hit die, take that number, plus your Constitution modifier, and then you add that number to your max hit points. That is your new max hit point level. With the Dwarven Toughness, you get an extra 1 every level. At level 20, that's 20 points of extra health. Very handy. Or you have the Mountain Dwarf. Your strength score increases by 2. So that's one thing that's a trade-off. So for a hill dwarf, you get a +2 to Constitution and a +1 to Wisdom. But as a mountain dwarf, you get a +2 to Constitution and a +2 to Strength. You're going to be a beefy boy, you play that. Or girl. And then you have Dwarven Armor Training, which gives you proficiency with light and medium armor. Normally, dwarves will play a race that gives them proficiency with armor anyways. So, that's not that much. Unless you're playing a caster. But it'd be really weird to play a caster with having a high strength and constitution. But, I mean, you do you. If you think it'll work, you can play it. Now you have our elves, which are, as you can see, more slender and graceful. I'm not going to go into the explaining everything like I did for the dwarves, but we'll pick out the important things. Okay, your names, your traits, dexterity score goes up by 2, which means they'd be good rangers. Or rogues, like we're playing rogues. Size, speed, dark vision, keen senses, proficiency, perception skill. That's a free proficiency, which just means you get your proficiency modifier added whenever you make a perception skill check. Great. Fey ancestry, saving throws against being charmed, and you can't be put to sleep. That's because of trance. Elves don't sleep. They meditate for 4 hours instead of sleeping for 8. Languages, subraces. You got your high elves, which increase your intelligence, gives you a cantrip and extra language. Wood elf increases your wisdom. Weapon training, Fleetfoot, which increases your movement speed. Mask of the Wild lets you hide in nature better. You got your dark elves, which is a +1 to charisma. Dark vision, superior dark vision. So normally dark vision is 60 feet. With dark elves, your dark vision is 120 feet. You have sunlight sensitivity, so since your eyes are so trained to see through darkness, you're a little more sensitive to sunlight, so you get disadvantage on a lot of stuff while being in sunlight. You got magic specifically for being a dark elf or a drow, as they're called, and then you have special weapon training for being a drow. Halflings, small, practical, kind, and curious, which they could be little deviants too. You got your names, you got your traits, increased dexterity, which also make them a good rogue. Halflings reach adulthood at the age of 20, generally lives to the middle of his or her second century. They live long. What, 150? Something like that. Size. Halflings are average around 3 feet tall, weigh about 40 pounds. You are small, which means your speed is reduced to 25. Or it's low. So, racial trait. Lucky. When you roll a 1 on an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, you can re-roll the die, and you must use the new roll. I mean, if you're rolling a 1, you might as well just take the new roll anyways. Brave. You had advantage on saving throws against being frightened. Comes up a little more often than you think it would. Halfling nimbleness. You can move through the space of any creature that is of a size larger than yours. So normally, if I remember correctly, you can move through ally spaces. So how spaces are considered, it's 5 feet by 5 feet squares, basically. If you have an ally standing in a 5 foot by 5 foot square, normally you can move through it, but you cannot end in it. So it's kind of just like you grab your buddy by the shoulder, like, oh, excuse me, and you kind of step around them without like knocking them over or anything. But you cannot share the same 5 foot by 5 foot square. Now with the halfling nimbleness, but normally you cannot do that with an enemy. With the halfling nimbleness, you can, as long as they are of at least one size larger than you. Languages, common and halfling, subrace, light-footed, and stout. Light-footed, pretty handy. As a light-footed halfling, you can easily hide from notice, even using other people as cover. You're inclined to be affable and get along well with others. In the Forgotten Realms, light-footed halflings have spread the farthest and thus are the most common variety. Lightfoots are more prone to wanderlust than other halflings and often dwell alongside other races or take up a nomadic life. In the world of Greyhawk, these halflings are called Harefeet or Tallfellows. Any of you Lord of the Ring fans, halflings are considered hobbits usually in the Lord of the Rings franchise. Then you have your stout halflings. A stout halfling, you are hardier than average and have some resistance to poison. Some say that stouts have dwarven blood. In the Forgotten Realms, these halflings are called Stronghearts, and they're most common in the south. For them, you have Constitution rate boost and stout resilience. You have advantage on saving throws against poison, and you have resistance against poison damage. So a lot like dwarves. Then you got your humans. So I think we'll go with a halfling just for this build because they fit the best. So we will go to, and then we'll go with the Lightfoot halfling. Like I said, this is going to be a very basic, typical halfling, or not halfling, rogue build. So we'll just go for it. But again, you can change this up any way you want. Alignment, you can play alignment however you want. There are 9 different alignments that fall under like different ranges. So you could probably, the best way to describe it, it's a 9x9 block or a 3x3 block. And then up top you will have good, neutral, and evil. And on the side you will have lawful, neutral, and chaotic. Lawful, the left side, the what's up, Garcia? Everything's good, man. Just having some fun, talking about some D&D. So on the left side, you will have your lawful, which means you follow society. a certain societal set of laws, usually depicted on like your background, where you're from, whatever. Um, Neutral is you're kind of you kind of waver. You can be like you do enough to get through without trying to stand out too much. Chaotic, you're just like oh fucks. You do what you want. Then up top you have good, neutral, evil. Good means you do things morally. Like you don't hurt people just to hurt people. You hurt people for they're being dicks. You got your neutral, which is you can go really either way. You can do something good and do something not so moral. Evil, you burning down orphanages, my guy. So that's how alignment kind of works. That's how I like to describe alignment. I like to go chaotic neutral. I don't like usually like my characters being tied down by too many rules, but they usually try to blend in and not stand out too much. Obviously, they're going to be like a thief, assassin. I mean, they're rogues. They're going to be like thief assassins. So they can do questionable things, but not necessarily evil things. So we just go chaotic neutrals because it's fun. It's really fun to roleplay too. You got your humans. They're not. They are for a new player. Humans are basic. Like your basic starters. Humans can do anything and everything. They don't favor any classes really. And they go by, and you can see by their ability score improvements. All of your ability scores each increase by 1. You have your variant human traits, which will make it so 2 different ability scores go up by 1, but you get some other things too. You get a feat, proficiency with a skill of your choice. Just trade-off stuff. You don't specify anything, so you're okay at just about everything. Size, speed, alignment, whatever, age. We're humans. We kind of know what we do. Dragonborns. These are your... not really half dragon, but, I mean, you're kind of born from a dragon. And honestly, these are, to me, completely new race. They were not in 3.5, and so they were completely new to me. It was different, and they fall under the uncommon races. So like everything up until Dragonborns are like the most common races in the D&D worlds. Like you're not gonna walk into a town and see an entire thriving city of Dragonborns and Tieflings and Gnomes and stuff like that. Like they're not as common usually. Now, granted, you can play a campaign. Like right now, I'm in a campaign where the primary races are Dragonborns with their dragon parents being like overlords. It's different. It's crazy. Draconic traits, you get a breath weapon based off of what type of dragon you were born from. You get damage resistance based on the same thing. Ability score strength by 2, charisma by 1, which I think it's because Dragonborns don't have like set sub races. You have your type, and then so you just get 3 points off the bat. You get your gnomes, which are kind of like halflings, but different at the same time. Gnomes, size, small, speed. I miss. Yeah, I got ability score, intelligence. Got their age, alignment. They have dark vision. Gnome. I don't think halflings had dark vision. I didn't see that. You got your cunning, which you have advantage on all intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws against magic. So you're pretty resilient in terms of resisting spells. I think that's the biggest difference between halflings and gnomes. You got your sub-races. You got your half-elf, which is usually half-human, half-elf. But you can completely mix it up with however you want. You got your half-orc, which are, again, usually half-human, half-orc. Half-orc. Um, traits, strength score, constitution. They are very tanky, burly race. Tieflings. These characters, this race, they are basically descendants of a human and demonic altercation. Or not altercation, but yeah. They are basically descendants of a human and a demon having fun. So anyways, here's a good description of all the classes. Barbarian, fierce warriors who are primitive and battle hungry. The biggest thing is their rage, which gives them resistances to damage and increase their output of damage. Bards, they are magical and they are manipulative. I want to say they can use their magic to manipulate a lot of things. They like to be portrayed as being like musical playboys or playgirls. It's whatever. You can honestly use whatever type of inspiration you want for your art craft. Most people go with magic or with music, but you can do anything. Cook. You can be a cook bard. You make food that inspires people. You can make paintings that inspire people, or drawings, or etchings, or poems. Any of that stuff you can use for your bardicans for providing inspiration. Clerics are your holy people. They can be frontline fighters that do a lot of damage and then sit there and heal their friends while praying to their god. Clerics can be very overpowered. I think it'd be fun to play a all cleric campaign. Druids, they are your nature magic folk. They use the nature around them to cast spells involving air, water, fire, earth, the elements, nature, trees, animals, all that stuff. That's your druid. Fighter, it's your basic martial class. You fight things. It's what you do. It can be easy, it can be challenging based on your subclass, but it can be fun either way. Monks. That is probably one of the strongest martial classes in my opinion. You have your key points, you can just wreck someone's face. We played a secondary campaign and my character was a monk. And there was a pool of electrified water that I just kept using key points in and kept pushing the enemy back into. Because I would sit there and I would hit him and then I would use a key point to push him 5 feet back into electrified water. It was a way of the open hand monk, which can be extremely fun. I like to consider the open hand monks as I don't want the DM to do this. So, you want to control your character? No thank you, DM. Push. Or knock him prone. Or don't give him reactions and then flip him off as you're walking away from him and he can't react. Monks can be fun. Monks can be highly overpowered, but they can be so much fun. Paladins, very overpowered. They can be holy, but they make an oath and they will stick to that oath and then they will wreck your face. They will take attacks and then be like, oh, that hit? Alright, smite. A lot of races classes you have to designate you're going to do that before you do it. Paladins, nope. It's like, oh, I hit him? Alright, smite. And they wreck undead. They destroy undead, for the most part. Rangers are complicated. They can be complicated. They are basically when an archer meets a druid. A fighter meets a druid. They are pretty utility based. They have favorite terrains, which give them bonuses to being in that terrain with movement, navigation, all that stuff, tracking. But they also do a good amount of damage, and a lot of their spells based on buffing themselves to do additional damage. Like one of the Ranger's key spells is called Hunter's Mark. Makes it easier to track and recall information on the target, But also it does extra, like you do extra damage whenever you hit your marked target. A lot of people don't like playing Rangers because they're not that heavy with damage. Like as compared to like a fighter, a monk, and a paladin, they don't do that much, or even a barbarian, especially a barbarian. They don't do that much physical damage. But they excel in things that the paladin, monk, and fighter, barbarian can't really do. Which normally is stuff like navigation, creature identification, stuff like that. Could you replace a ranger with a fighter and a druid? Yes. But rangers are actually pretty fun. You get your rogue, which we are building right now, your stealthy scoundrel, sorcerer. This is the Chad of high school, the dude who has had everything provided for him since birth. He is a spellcaster. He is a very strong spellcaster. That he gets his magic from a mommy and daddy, basically. He is a spoiled white kid of D&D. Good with that. Warlocks. Warlocks are your people who have hit the lowest low in their life and have reached out for any and anything to give them power, which is usually a demonic patron. There are a lot of examples in the world, or in different worlds. Anyone who's watched Black Butler, the main character, CL Phantomive, he is a warlock. He made a deal with Sebastian, give him his soul in return for Sebastian helping him get revenge on the people who killed his parents. He is a warlock. Wizard, they are your scholarly spellcasters. They have spent years upon years learning, memorizing, and controlling the magics around them. Merlin, basically. They are Merlin. So this tells about your hit die, which is the die you roll on short rest to heal, and the die you roll when you level up to gain bonus health. Rogues are pretty high. They have a D8. You go D6, 8, 10, and then barbarians are the only ones with 12 because they are usually barbarians are your tank. But rogues can be frontline fighters, so they need to have a decent amount of health also, so they have the D8. And it talks about your saving throw proficiency. So these are the saving throws that you will most likely succeed on every single time. So we can go ahead and mark dexterity and intelligence. Now, the one thing I forgot to do when choosing the Lightfoot Rogue is we forgot to buff up our ability scores. So we'll go back up to the Halfling. We chose the Lightfoot Halfling, so we get a +2 to our dexterity, which makes this a 17, which subtract 10, 7, divided by 2, 3.5. That now makes this a +3. And our intelligence goes up by 1. Oops, sorry. Wait, no. No, they were was it Lightfoot intelligence or was it charisma? Sorry. So our charisma goes up by 1, making that a 15. Which I think it stays at 2. Yeah, because subtract 10, 5, divided by 2, 2.5, round down 2. So these are now our scores, which now we can start implementing them for at least our saving throws. No, wait, we need our good proficiency bonus first. So now we need to head back to the class. Now, I understand that this method is a lot of back and forth, but if you try to go straight through, you're going to miss things, and you're going to have to go back through anyways. And so, yeah. That's why I like to do it this way. And Ranger, Rogue. Okay, level 1. Our proficiency bonus is a +2. So we put the 2 there. So now we can start doing this. Our strength saving throw is a -1. Dexterity saving throw is 3, plus our proficiency bonus because we are proficient, so that's a 5. Constitution is a +1. Intelligence. 1 plus our proficiency of 2 gives us a 3. Realize this is kind of small. The form's weird. Charisma is a plus 2. Oh, I missed wisdom. Alright, later, bro. Wisdom is a 0. Happens. Okay. We will figure these out in a minute, because before we can do this, we need to find out our background. Because rogue is what we are going to be. This is our adventuring class. This is what we are now, what we are going to be in the future. This is who we are becoming. But before we find out who we are and who we're becoming, we need to find out who we were, which is very handy. So we shall scroll down till we find, that's Warlock, till we find backgrounds. This stuff we'll get into later. Inspiration. Backgrounds. Okay. So backgrounds are what we were before we started adventuring. And they give us a little inspiration as to the character, why the character became an adventurer in the first place, with their personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws. So you have your acolyte, spent your life service of a temple to a specific god or patron. Great for a cleric and paladin. Can be used for a rogue. Not the best for us. We'll move on. Charlatan. This was the recommended backgrounds in the rogue description. So let's give it a read. You have always had a way with people. You know what makes them tick. You can tease out their hearts, desires after a few minutes of conversation, and with a few leading questions, you can read them like they were a children's book. It's a useful talent, and one that you're perfectly willing to use for your advantage. You know what people want, and you deliver, or rather, you promise to deliver. Common sense should steer people away from things that sound too good to be true, but common sense seems to be in short supply when you are around. The bottle of pink-colored liquid will surely cure that unseelie rash. This ointment, nothing more than a bit of fat with a sprinkle of silver dust, can restore youth and vigor, and there's a bridge in the city that's just happened to be for sale. These marvels sound implausible, but you make them sound like the real deal. Honestly, this would be great for our character because we chose to have a higher charisma. So it actually would be very handy for us. But let's do a little more reading into it. Skill proficiencies. You are proficient with deception, which is lying to people, and sleight of hand, which is being able to take something away from someone without them knowing, or give them something. It's like pickpocketing, or there are several other things. If you try to cast a spell and you don't want to be caught doing it, sleight of hand, being able to sit there and you do your somatic components without being caught. Tool proficiencies. Proficient with the disguise kit and the forgery kit. You can make anyone look like within reason, obviously. Like, you can't have a halfling look like a freaking Goliath or half-orc. Maybe a child one, but not a full-grown one. You got your basic equipment, which can change. You have schemes that you can pull out. Every charlatan has an angle he or she uses in preference to other schemes. Choose a favorite scam or roll on the table below. Just how you are a charlatan, basically. Feature false identity. You have created a second identity that includes documentation, established acquaintances, and disguises that allow you to assume that persona. Additionally, you can forge documents, including official papers and personal letters, as long as you have seen an example of the kind of document or the handwriting you are trying to copy. It is very much of just getting in somewhere and just taking over and being controlling it. Kind of like a spy. a spy who likes to scam people. It's pretty good for the rogue. But what's also good for a rogue, criminal. You're an experienced criminal with a history of breaking the law. Nothing new there. I mean, that's pretty roguelike. Skill proficiencies, deception, which is lying, and stealth. You're proficient with one type of gaming set and thieves' tools. The only downside is, I'm pretty sure you get thieves' tools expertise from being a rogue in the first place, but we'll take a look at that. Equipment, your basic thieves' tool set, crowbar, set of dark common clothes, including hood and belt pouch containing 50 gold. Criminal specialty. What was your crime of choice? Feature, criminal contact. You have a reliable and trustworthy contact who acts as your liaison to a network of other criminals. You are in a criminal underground, basically. You know how to get messages to and from your contact, even over great distances. Specifically, you know the local messengers, corrupt caravan masters, and seedy sailors who can deliver messages for you. Yeah, criminal information underground. Pretty handy, honestly. You have your variant criminal spy. Other capabilities are not much different from those of burglar or smuggler. You learn and practice them in a very different context as an espionage agent. You might have been an officially sanctioned agent of the crown, or perhaps you sold the secrets you uncovered to the highest bidder. Entertainer, great for bards. Folk hero. Wait, did I skip one? No. Gladiator is a type of entertainer. Folk hero. You are the hero of your hometown, basically. Guild artisan. You work in a guild. I think it pretty much just gives you proficiencies with different crafting items. And gives you a guild membership, which means you can go up to a... I'll let you guys read that when you make your own character, but you can find a guild and do some work for them, I guess. You can do a guild merchant, which is a variant of the guild member. A hermit? No. Hermit's not the one I like. Yeah, you live in seclusion, either in a sheltered community such as a monastery or entirely alone for a formative part of your life. It is in your time apart from the clamor of society, you found quiet, solitude, and perhaps some of the answers you were looking for. Not quite really roguey. I mean, you can do that. You seclude yourself from the world, you come out and you have nothing, and you can just start taking things. It's a possibility. Noble, I think, would be hilarious to be a rogue, because as a noble, your skill lets you be like, you show, like, you can show a symbol, be like, hey, I want to talk to your king. And they'll be like, oh shit, okay, come right this way. Nobles would be great. It would be hilarious. Anyone who's watched One Piece up to the right around the Dressrosa arc, Doflamingo was a noble, and due to actions of his father, lost their nobility, and he became a pirate. But that's pretty much what that's happened here. Outlander, I think, is great. I love Outlander, especially for your utility classes like the Ranger. I think an Outlander is great for a Ranger. You're proficient with athletics and survival. Rangers love survival. You're proficient with a type of musical instrument. Not as important, but pretty good. Language of your choice. Equipment. Origin. What were you doing beforehand? You could be a bounty hunter, a pilgrim, a hunter-gatherer. A hunter-gatherer! Perfect for Rangers. We're playing a rogue. Any of that stuff. Feature Wanderer. You have excellent memory for maps and geography, and you can always recall the general layout of terrain, settlements, and other features around you. In addition, you can find food and fresh water for yourself and up to 5 other people each day. provided that the land offers berries, small game, water, and so forth. Which means as long as it's available in the wilderness, you can find it without having to even try. Which is great for your campaigns where the DM's like, have you guys eaten today? Have you guys drank water in the last 5 hours? No? There's going to be repercussions. This is great for that because you can do this, well, as a ranger, you can do all of that while traveling still at full speed as long as you're in your favorite terrain. Great. Not so much for a rogue. Sage, very magic-y. Would be pretty okay if you're going for the magic rogue. We're not. Sailor. So, Sailor's pretty cool. If you are going to be having a lot of water travel in your campaign, which you would probably talk to DM about beforehand. When you need to, you can secure free passage on a sailing ship for yourself and your adventuring companions. If there's going to be a lot of water travel, that'll be great. Variant to Sailor is Pirate, which I like. You spent your youth under the sway of a dread pirate, a ruthless cutthroat who taught you how to survive in a world of sharks and savages. You've indulged in larceny on the high seas and sent more than one deserving soul to the briny grave. Fear and bloodshed are no strangers to you, and you've gathered a somewhat unsavory reputation in many a port town. If you decide that your sailing career involved piracy, you can choose the bad reputation feature instead of the ship's passage feature. Bad reputation feature is if your character has a sailor background, you may select this background feature instead of the ship's passage. No matter where you go, people are afraid of you due to your reputation. When you are in a civilized settlement, you can get away with minor criminal offenses such as refusing to pay for food at a tavern or breaking down doors at a local shop, since most people will not report your activity to the authorities. That could be pretty fun. For probably more of a strong arm rogue. This isn't really more of a strong arm rogue. This is more of a manipulative rogue. So, great option. Maybe not for this character. Got your soldier, your basic soldier. Blah blah blah. You fight forever. Urchin, this can actually be very good for a rogue, honestly. Proficiencies, sleight of hand, and stealth, disguise kit, and thieves' tools. You basically start off as a beggar. Your feature is city secrets. You know the secret patterns and flow to cities and can find passages through the urban sprawl that others would miss. When you are not in combat, you and companions can travel between any two locations in the city twice as fast as your speed would normally allow. Can be very handy. I don't know if that involves every city. Probably does. Might have to talk to your DM about it. Or if it's just the city you grew up in. Can be very handy for rogues. Can be extremely handy for rogues. But I think we'll go with the Charlatan, like recommended, because it does help us out with the charisma aspect. So that's going to be sleight of hand and deception. Oh, wait, no. I remember now. Yes, rogues can get proficiency with thieves' tools. Actually, I think they get expertise, which gives them automatic proficiency. We'll take a look at that. Anyways. We got sleight of hand, and I think it was it stealth? No, deception and sleight of hand. Deception. And sleight of hand. So that will be our proficiencies from our backgrounds, and then we'll go over here to features and traits, and we will put in false identity. No, I spelled it right. Identity. Got it. So, there's our first feature. False identity. Whoa, just... Okay, my computer is being weird. Anywho. Now, I mean, you can make notes on like a separate pad of paper for keeping track of all these things, or just keep the book open. It's up to you. We won't sit here and pick traits and ideals and bonds and flaws because that take too much time. You can pick those however you want. But right now, we're gonna go back up to the rogue. Too far. We are in paladin, ranger. All right, rogue. So right now we are a. Ignore that. Level 1 rogue. Woo! I gotta write Charlton up here. Okay. Character sheet's coming along pretty well. Itchy nose. Alright, so. So right now, our proficiency bonus is a +2. We are level 1. And then we can go back over here, because right now we have new features from our level 1 rogue. We have expertise, sneak attack, and thieves' cant. So we shall write these down here. Expertise, sneak attack, which I like to put the changing information. I like to put that down here. So, like, for sneak attack, is currently 1d6. Actually, we'll do a... What am I doing? Lowercase d. 1d6. So, 1 6-sided die every time we get a sneak attack. Great. And then Thieves' Cant. Actually... Yeah, we'll put that down there. and then we can talk about all of these things right now. Oh, well, when we get there. Hit points. Your hit die for a rogue is 1d8. Your hit points at first level is 8, plus your constitution modifier. So 8 plus our modifier of 1. So our maximum hit points is 9. Not that great, but we are level 1, so it's kind of what's going to happen. Hit points every level. Hit points at higher levels. Every time you level up, you will roll your hit die of 1d8. And then you will add your constitution modifier to that and that'll be your new max hit points. But there is a optional rule of taking the average number, which is right here, is a 5. So if you take your 8-sided die, and you're worried that you're going to roll lower than a 5. Like here, I rolled a 4. Normally, you would choose to either roll or to take the average number before rolling. You can't just be like, oh, I'm going to roll. Oh, wait, that's a 3. No, I'm going to take the average number. No, you can't do that unless you're a dick. You have to decide beforehand. I like to go with the average one because I don't trust the rolls. So every level after that, we'll take the 5 and add your constitution modifier, which will be 5 plus 1, so 6. So at level 2, we will have 6 additional HP, which will take us up to 15. It can get pretty good going that way. Proficiencies. We are proficient with light armor. We will remember that when we go armor shopping. Weapons. We are proficient with simple weapons. Hand crossbows, long swords, rapiers, and short swords. Again, we'll remember that for when we go shopping. Proficiency with tools. We are proficient with thieves' tools, just for being a rogue. So we can come down here and write thieves' tools. Because rogues. Thieves' tools are actually very handy. Thieves' tools is what you will roll for when you pick a lock, try to open a crate, stealthily, do anything thievy. Except maybe sleight of hand. You'll probably want to roll sleight of hand for that. But we can actually there is a section in the book that talks about your tools and what they all come with, which we can look at later when we go shopping. Skills. So each class has a different set of skills that they can be proficient with. Rogues usually have a higher number of skills that they can be proficient with, and a higher number that they are proficient with. Like right here, we have this huge list, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 skills that they can be proficient with. Can be. We get to choose 4 of them. Now, we already have Deception, which is there, and Sleight of Hand, which is there. So that's why I like to choose the background first, because that way you don't pick a skill from your class to be proficient with before you find out what you're already proficient with from your background. So that's why I jump around like I do, because you find out this information pretty good, pretty early. So for our 4 skills, obviously, well, not obviously, for me personally, making a rogue character, want to be proficient with stealth. Because stealth to a rogue is bread and butter. Stealth, stealth, stealth. So that's 1. Now, we wanted to be a charismatic rogue. So at this point, we can, since we already have Deception, which goes off of Charisma, we can become proficient with other types of Charisma checks. So, Performance is a Charisma check, but we're not exactly a performing character. We're more of a doing stuff while people are distracted by our performance. So we're not going to choose Performance. At least not yet. We might come back to it. Persuasion. Persuasion is one we want to be proficient with as a charismatic rogue. So we'll go with Persuasion. So that's 2 of our 4. Now, if we look over here, Intimidation can also be charismatic, which we have. But do we really want to be intimidating? I'm not too sure we want to be intimidating. So we'll hold off on that one. Insight is probably good for our character, because it's being able to look at someone, look at their body language, their tics, their vocal cues, and to get an idea on what's going through their head. Kind of like almost like being a human lie detector. Or if they're planning to attack you, or if they're planning to stand down. It's kind of, it's your insight into their personality, into their actions. So we will probably go with Insight, which goes off of Wisdom, but still. So that'll be our 3rd point. So now we have Deception, Insight. We're already proficient with Deception and Perception, so we don't have to worry about those. Wait, no, we're not. Not Perception. Sleight of Hand. So Perception is being able to perceive things. Like, look into a room and be like, wait a minute, what was that over there? It's kind of, or you're looking into a crowd for a specific person, but you don't really know what the person looks like. You have a vague description, like they're wearing a red hat and a blue shirt. Looking at a crowd, red hat, blue shirt over there. It's kind of like what your perception, how you perceive things. Also, it can be used for listening and smelling and just kind of stuff like that. It's like a vague investigation. So that's always pretty handy. That can be pretty handy for a rogue. Investigation can be handy because that is your trap finding. That is that stuff, like searching. That's your investigation. So right now, we're kind of stuck as to whether we want to have a high investigation for trap finding or high persuasion for picking out details. I think we will go with investigation because it can be very handy. It can be very helpful. So, so those are the skills we are proficient with. Now that we have that, we can start allocating our ability points. So acrobatics. Acrobatics could have been handy too, but since we're at high dexterity, it's okay. We're not exactly going for that kind of rogue. We're going for more of a charismatic, less nimble rogue. So that's okay. So acrobatics, dexterity modifier 3. That's not a 3. That is a 6. 3. Animal handling, wisdom 0. Arcana, intelligence 1. Athletics, strength -1. Deception. So this is something we're proficient with. So we take our deception or charisma score or charisma modifier, add our proficiency bonus, and that gives us a 4. History is intelligence, which is a 1. Insight, which is a proficiency. So we take our modifier of 0 and the proficiency bonus, and we get a 2. Intimidation is a charisma, so modifier of 2. Investigation is intelligence, so 1 plus our proficiency bonus because we are proficient. Oh, nope. 3. Medicine, wisdom, modifier 0. Nature, intelligence, modifier 1. Perception, wisdom, modifier 0. Performance, charisma, modifier of 2. Persuasion, charisma plus proficiency, so 2 plus 2 is 4. Religion, intelligence, modifier 1. Sleight of hand is a dexterity-based proficiency, so dexterity of 3 plus proficiency of 2 is a 5. Stealth, same thing. Proficient with dexterity is 3 and 2, 5. And then survivals are wisdom, modifier 0. So now, we have our skills, our skill check modifiers. So we know what we're going to add or subtract to whatever checks our DM asks us to make. And then down here you have your passive, wisdom, perception. So that's basically, passive is, when they say passive, it's usually 10 plus your modifier. So 10 plus our modifier of, our perception modifier. So since our perception, we are not proficient with perception, so we don't get any bonuses to our modifier. So that's just 10 plus our modifier of 0, which is 10. And then down here, we can talk about our proficiencies, which right here is light armor, simple weapons, hand crossbows. Don't have to write it. It's pretty easy to remember, and it's really easy to look back on. If you want to save the space, save the space. Languages we're proficient with. We know Common, which is like your basic. It's the most basic talking language that there is. The most common, obviously. And then because we are a halfling, we know halfling. And those are our languages. And we can speak, read, and write those. As a rogue, you can also speak, read, and write Thieves' Cant, which to most people it just sounds like gibberish. You can role play Thieves' Cant any way you want. It can be gibberish. It can be a cipher where you say, like, you speak 10 words, but only 3 of those words are important. It could be keywords. Like you can say, go to a bar and order the usual, and you'll come out with the bartender will come out with a tray of food and some lockpicks hidden inside. It just depends. It's Whatever you decide to do with your DM, with Thieves' Cant, or anyone else that knows Thieves' Cant, you can have so much fun with it. But it's stuff that wouldn't stand out to somebody listening in on the conversation or trying to read. So, like, if you, like, let's say in Skyrim, where you have the symbols that the Thieves Guild puts everywhere to mark caches and hideouts. To the average person, it doesn't mean anything to you. It's just something someone scribbled on a wall. To a thief, you know that there's a cache hidden nearby. Or there is a entrance to a Thieves Guild location nearby. That's basically what Thieves' Cant is. So now that we have our skills picked, we have our points allocated. We can fix that later. We can talk about our skills now. So, at expertise, which we get more of later on. So, we have expertise at level 1. We have it again at level 6. I think that's it. I could be wrong. But it'll tell us in the actual description. So, expertise. At first level, choose 2 of your skill proficiencies, or 1 of your skill proficiencies, and your proficiency with Thieves' Tools. Choose 2 skills or a skill in Thieves' Tools, basically. Your proficiency bonus is doubled for any ability checks you make that use either of the chosen proficiencies. At 6th level, you can choose 2 more proficiencies or a skill in Thieves' Tools to gain this benefit. So basically what it means is you double your proficiency bonus with those things that you're proficient with. So depending on what you choose, you can be very overpowered with this. Like, it is great. Because as the chart says, your proficiency bonus goes up to a +6 at 17th level. With expertise, you're getting a +12 to those 4 specific skills or 3 skills and Thieves' Tools. +12. That's ridiculous, but also so much fun. So we can sit here and choose. For our rogue, we can choose. For right now, we'll go with Thieves' Tools. So I like to put a big X for expertise, and then we'll go with stealth. So that would make our stealth 4 plus 3 of our dexterity modifier. 4 and 3 is 7. So we'll put a 7, and we'll put a big old X. Did I turn on caps lock? Yeah. 7X for expertise. And then at 6th level, we can choose 2 more skills, which we can then put in for our deception and persuasion if we wanted to. So that's expertise. Sneak attack. Beginning at 1st level, you know how to strike subtly and exploit a foe's distraction. Once per turn, you can deal an extra 1d6 damage to 1 creature you hit with an attack if you have advantage on the attack roll. The attack must use a finesse or a ranged weapon, which we will get into later. But basically, you need a finesse weapon, which are weapons that use your dexterity modifier for the attack and damage instead of normal strength. Or a ranged weapon, which again uses dexterity. The amount of extra damage increases as you gain levels in the class shown in the sneak attack column rogue table. You don't need advantage on the attack roll. If another enemy of the target is within 5 feet of it, that enemy isn't incapacitated and you don't have disadvantage on the attack roll. So, again, sneak attack is your rogue's bread and butter. For ranged, people like to hide and then attack from the shadows, which usually gives you advantage. So it's like, as long as the enemy is not aware of your presence, you get advantage. Or if, let's say, your barbarian charges in head first and is battling in melee range with your target, because your enemy's enemy is within 5 feet of it, is considered distracted in combat and not solely focusing on your attacks, which means you get to do your sneak attack. But you only get to do it once per round. So, rogues do not get extra attack, I don't think. No. So you pretty much get one attack per round, which will be your sneak attack. If you find a way later on to do multiple attacks per round, which there are other ways of doing it than having extra attack, you still only get sneak attack once. But I mean, at 19th level, you're rolling 10d6 for sneak attack damage, which can be ridiculous, especially if you get a critical, because then that doubles all that damage. It is great. Additional levels, you get additional things, like your roguish archetype at 3rd level. Cunning action at 2nd level. Cunning action is fun because you get to do stuff on your bonus action, making you even slipperier and harder to pin down. But we are making a level 1 character, so we're going to ignore those skills for right now. Right now, we need to figure out our items, because we are pretty much done with all that stuff, minus our items. We need armor, we need weapons, and whatever else we want to do. So now, how shopping for items works is you can take your equipment from here. You can choose a rapier or a short sword. You can choose a short bow and quiver of 20 arrows, or a short sword. A burglar's pack, a dungeoneer's pack, or an explorer's pack. And you can choose, and you have you start with the following equipment in addition to the equipment granted by your background. So you have your background equipment, which we did not go over, plus something from plus these bulleted points. So choose one of these two, one of these two, one of these three, and then this bonus stuff. So leather armor, 2 daggers, and thieves' tools. This is your starting equipment. Now, if you choose to do a different route, you can talk to your DM and be like, "Hey, what can I have to start off with?" And he can say, "You can have this much gold worth of equipment," or he can say, "You can have whatever you want within reason." It's up to your DM as to how much equipment you can start with. But normally you start with this stuff. Yeah. So we will go down to equipment, because that's where we are now. We are at the equipment stage, because rogues don't get spells, at least not yet, unless you're choosing the spell thief subclass, or I think it's spell thief, or something else. This part here gives you a description on details. So you got your name, your gender, height and weight, how you can pick it, how you can, like here, human, base height 4'8". Now you can add a height modifier. You roll 2d10, and you can change. Plus 2d10 inches. Her player rolls 2d10 and gets a total of 12. So Tika stands 5'8" now. Do the same thing with weight. Base weight 110 pounds. Roll 2d4 and you can multiply it, which can be a lot. It's like 2d4. You roll 2 4s. That's 8. Or yeah, 2 4s is 8. You can 110 times 8. That's 880 pounds. What the fuck? That's weird. Her roll, 2d4 roll is 3, so Tika weighs an extra 36 pounds. That wasn't specified up here. Okay, then the player uses the same roll of 12 and multiplies it by 2d4. Okay. Now, that was weird. Other physical characteristics, you got your alignment, which goes into the description of all of those. Alignment in the multiverse. So you have examples of scripts. You got your Dwarvish, your Elvish down here. And this talks about your standard languages, who speaks it, and what the script is in the form of. Now then you have your exotic languages. Okay, so up here. Language, giant. Typically spoken by ogres and giants, but it's scripted in Dwarvish. So just because you can read Dwarvish does not exactly mean that you can understand a written giant language. Because they may use the Dwarvish characters, but they come out to mean different things. Like GET may be written GET in Dwarvish, but might not be get in giant. It might be something completely different. That's something I never really understood, but it's starting to make a little better sense to me now that I think about it in some ways. Something with Gnomish, like language is Gnomish, but it's written in Dwarvish, so it's weird. And you got your exotic, abyssal, spoken by demons, celestial, spoken by celestials, draconic, spoken by dragons and dragonborn. All your languages. You got inspiration. And now we're into the backgrounds again. Keep moving on. And we got your starting equipment. Here, you can roll for your starting wealth. As a rogue, we can do 44 times 10. And that's our starting gold, which means we can spend that. It talks about your exchange rates. Basically, it's a 1 to 10. So, or 10 to 1. So copper, 10 coppers usually, 1 silver. We'll skip Electrum for right now because Electrum is weird. 1 silver is 10 gold. 10 gold is 1 platinum, and so on and so forth. Electrum is kind of like your half dollars. So let's think of it in terms of, let's say American money. Copper is your penny. Silver is your dime. Electrum is your half dollar. Your half dollar. So, because 5 silver is 1 electrum. Gold is your dollar amount. And then platinum is like a $10 bill. That's kind of how I like to think about the exchange rates in the Dungeons & Dragons world. Now, in the campaign that I'm in right now, everything is dropped by 1 basically. Your standard amount is gold. In my campaign, the standard is silver, maybe even copper. But so if I were to look for an item, and let's say in a normal campaign it was worth 10 gold. In my campaign that I'm in, its worth is 10 silver. Just because it's a very underwealth community, basically. Talk about this. Now it talks about your armor and shields. The armor you can choose from is based off of your proficiency. You have to be proficient with the armor to get the benefits of the armor, basically. And you have your armor class, which is determined by the armor you're wearing. You got your heavy armor, which usually has a strength requirement to use it properly, and also has has horrible things for stealth characters, but great for non-stealthy characters. We'll go with that. Stealth. Each armor has a rating for its stealth, whether it is good for stealth or whether it's bad for stealth. We'll go over that. Shields. A shield is made from wood or metal and is carried in one hand. Wielding a shield increases your armor class by 2. You can benefit from only 1 shield at a time. In previous editions, different shields gave you different bonuses. This one is straight up just a +2 to your armor class. You can work with your DM to have better things, but that's just what it is. You got your light armor. Choices are padded, leather, studded leather, medium. You got your hide, chain shirt, scale mail, breastplate, half plate, heavy armor. You got your ring mail, chain mail, splint, and plate. Now this goes into the breakdown of all of this, like all of the important information. So, your worst armor, padded armor. Costs 5 gold. Your armor class is 11 plus your dexterity modifier, but it's pretty bulky, so you have disadvantage on stealth checks. And then you have your basic light armor, which is like the basic good armor. Leather costs twice as much, 10 gold, for the same dexterity, for the same armor class, but you no longer have disadvantage on stealth, which is pretty good. It's why most light armor users start with leather armor rather than padded armor, unless they don't really care about stealth. Now, the creme de la creme of your non-magic leather armor, or non-magic light armor, is studded leather. Pretty pricey, 4.5 times the price of leather armor, just for an additional 1 to your armor class, but that 1 can make or break a fight. So it's your 12 plus your dex modifier. So for all intents and purposes, we will say we are wearing studded leather armor, because that is going, well, no, we'll go with leather armor, because starting equipment, leather armor. Yeah. So that takes us up here to our armor class. The armor class of leather armor is 11 plus your dex modifier. So it is 11 plus our dex modifier of 3. We do not get a proficiency bonus to armor class, because we wouldn't even be getting this 11 if it wasn't for being proficient with leather armor. So normally how your armor class works if you're not wearing armor is 10 plus your dex modifier, which I don't think it says it too thoroughly in the book. I could be wrong, but I've never really seen it. So it's basically 10 plus your dex modifier. Now, leather armor might seem like, oh, I'm just getting 1 more for, like I said, a +1 to your armor class can make or break a fight. It is the determining factor of whether or not a hit hits you or not. There are a number of times my character has been saved by having 1 additional armor class. So 11 plus 3, so that makes our armor class 14. That's not bad starting out. That is really not bad. Our initiative is, so every time you go into a combat situation, you roll initiative to see who reacts the fastest and starts fighting first. So our initiative is our dex modifier, plus if we have any bonuses. Currently, we don't. You can get bonuses through feats and subclasses, but for right now, we don't have that. So our initiative is a +3. Just our dex modifier. Our speed, I'm pretty sure since we are halfling, it said our speed was 25. That's 25 feet per round. That is 5 5x5 squares. Should have wrote that down earlier, but we're doing it now because we're right here. Okay. Now, if you want to play higher armor classes, there's a bit of a trade-off with higher armor. It makes it harder for you to have good... Stronger armor is better when your dexterity is low. It's kind of a trade-off. So, like right here, medium armor, we have hide. Hide is 12 plus dex modifier, just like studded leather, but our dex modifier can only be a max of 2 for the sake of armor class. I don't know if it extends out to other skills, like if we try to do a acrobatics check, it means we can only get a +2 from our dexterity for all of our skills, or if it's just for armor. I'm not too sure. I never played a character that had anything higher than studded leather, so I can't say for sure. So, that would mean if we chose hide armor, it would be 12 plus our dex modifier max of 2. Our dex modifier is 3. So 12 plus 2 of 14 is the same thing as having 11 plus 3 from the leather armor. So it's not that beneficial. Now we start going up. If we wore a chain shirt, it'd be 13 plus 2. So that'd be 15. So technically, that would be even better for us as a rogue. And we currently, that does not give us disadvantage for stealth. So that could be helpful. Scale mail, 14 plus max dex of 2. That's 16. But that gives us a disadvantage for stealth. Not exactly what we want as a rogue. Breastplate. Very expensive. It's worth 400 gold, but it gives us a 14 plus our dex modifier without the disadvantage of stealth. So breastplate is a stealthy character. Breastplate is the highest we could go until we start racking up our dexterity, because we have the potential to get our dexterity modifier up to +5 naturally before relying on magic. So with the breastplate, it's 14 plus 2 of 16. If we got our dexterity up to a +5, which means our score would be 20, then it would be 5 plus the 11 that we currently have. So 11 plus 5, 16. That's the same as the breastplate. So, and then if we upgrade to the studded leather, that would be 12 plus 5 of 17. The highest rogue's armor can be naturally is 17 without having to get like special skills or feats or magic, whatever. That's that. So now we get into the heavy armor. Now, as you can see, there's no adding your dex modifier while wearing heavy armor. Just, there isn't. It's not there. You cannot be dexterous in heavy armor. That's the way the game made it. That's the way it is. All heavy armor gives disadvantage to stealth. So you are not being stealthy in heavy armor. I'm sorry. You got your ring mail, AC of 14. Chainmail, AC of 16. Splint armor, AC of 17. Plate armor, AC of 18. However, you need a strength of at least 13 to wear chainmail, and at least 15 to get splint and plate mail. Our character does not have that. Our character's strength is 8. He cannot wear that armor. It would be disastrous for him. The upside, these heavier armors for more melee heavy characters, less range, you get a shield. You can have a shield, which gives you a +2. So if you're playing a high strength frontline fighter, you can have plate mail, which gives you an 18 armor class, and be wielding a shield gives you another +2, which makes your armor class 20. Before magic, before feats, and before skills. That's pretty ridiculous. Because trust me, once you start getting in the higher levels, everything's got some magic or skill that makes it so much easier to hit you. You have your Dawn and Doff timing. So, how long it takes you to take off your light armor, medium armor, and heavy armor, and how long it takes you to put it back on. That's important because if you take your armor off to go to bed, which you should, because if you don't, you will probably get exhaustion, which is bad. You take your armor off. You get attacked in the middle of the night. If you're wearing light armor, you might try to put it on. Might. It only takes a minute. Medium armor takes you 5 minutes. A round in combat, I'm pretty sure a whole round in combat is 10 seconds? Or, no, it's like 6 or 10. I think it's like 6 seconds. A whole round in combat is like 6 seconds. It would take you 10 rounds in combat to put on light armor. 50 rounds to put on medium armor. And 100 rounds to put on heavy armor of combat. It's way too long. Picking up a shield, putting it on, in action. Not that bad. So, gotta keep that in mind. Now you have your weapons. You have your weapon properties, which we'll get into. Let's talk about just our weapons in general. You have simple weapons. Simple melee, simple ranged, and you have martial melee and martial ranged weapons. Now, according to the rogue proficiencies, we are proficient with all simple weapons. Simple, yeah, I think it was all simple. I'd pull it back up, but that's a lot of scrolling. So you got clubs, daggers, great clubs, hand axe, javelin, light hammer, mace, quarterstaff, sickle, spear, unarmed strikes. That's considered a simple weapon. Huh. Usually that's something completely different. Anyways, you got your light bow, dart, short bow, and sling. Now, some of the other things that we were proficient with was short swords. We can use short swords as a rogue. We can use rapiers as a rogue. Rapiers are great for rogues. I think that was about it. So that's why that's why the rogues tell you, or the class pages, class sections will say, this is your starting equipment. Choose from this, because it will only recommend stuff that you are already proficient with. Now here talks about the cost of all these weapons to buy them. Talks about the damage type, and everything. A club does bludgeoning damage. You're not stabbing or slashing anybody with a club unless you somehow break it. But I mean, flavor. Dagger, it does piercing damage. You can still try and slash with a dagger, but it's going to do piercing damage, sorry. Hand axe, slashing, javelin, piercing. Hammers, maces, quarterstaffs, that's all bludgeoning. Sickles are slashing. Rapiers, you got your piercing damage, because rapiers are a thrusting sword. Short swords, that was also something rogues can use. Also piercing, which I don't exactly agree with. I feel like short swords could be slashing. But anyways, weight of an items. DMs will decide whether or not weight is an important factor in your campaign or not. Properties. There are lots and lots. Okay, not that many. There are a good amount of properties. You have light, finesse, thrown, two-handed, versatile, ammunition, loading. So just there are a bunch. Heavy, reach, and all these mean something different, obviously, which we can go over. Ammunition is obviously it's an ammunition type. Arrows, bolts, pebbles for your sling, whatever. That's what they are. It's ammunition. Finesse. When making an attack. So, if you remember finesse, in the rogue skill, sneak attack, it has to be either a finesse weapon or a ranged weapon. Just because it's a stipulation you have to have. So, finesse. When making an attack with a finesse weapon, you use your choice of your strength or dexterity modifier for the attack and damage rolls. As our character is better with dexterity than strength, we need a finesse weapon in order to do any good amount of damage. You must use the same modifier for both rolls. So I don't know why anybody would want to make the attack with dexterity and damage with range, or damage with strength. I'm not too sure why, but book says no. Heavy, small creatures, which we are, as a halfling, have disadvantage on attack rolls with heavy weapons. A heavy weapon's size and bulk make it too large for a small creature to use effectively. So, something that used to happen in 3.5 is armor and, well, mostly weapons. Armor is still done this way, but weapons are made for the size of the character. So, since a halfling is small, it would have a small-sized dagger. The difference is that would make it do less damage, which is an annoying trade-off of playing a halfling. So let's say if a weapon normally did 1d6 damage, while a small creature was wielding a small-sized version of that same weapon, it would do instead 1d4. Was not fun to play. I mean, halflings have their upside, but that was a serious downside. So now they just made it so if they're heavy and light. If it's heavy, small creatures like halflings have disadvantage. A light weapon is small and easy to handle, making it ideal for use when fighting with two weapons. See the rules for two-weapon fighting. So, for two-weapon fighting, you have to either have... Obviously, you have two weapons, but one... I think at least one has to be a light weapon, though. Weapon in your offhand has to be light. Maybe both. I don't know. I've never done two-weapon fighting in 5th edition. So, I'm not sure. Loading. Because of time required to load this weapon, you can fire only one piece of ammunition from it when you use an action. Bonus action or reaction to fire, regardless of the number of attacks you can. So normally, a lot of martial classes can attack multiple times in a round. If they're using a ranged weapon with a loading property, it does not matter how many times they're allowed to attack per action. They can only do it once because of loading. That's usually on like your heavy crossbows. Range. Obviously, it's a ranged weapon. So throwing. Oh no, throwing's later. But like bows, crossbows, stuff like that. Reach. This weapon adds 5 feet of reach when you attack with it. So that's like your certain spears and pole arms and stuff like that. Normally, if you're fighting melee, you can only fight someone who's the next 5 foot square over. With the reach, you can reach them if there is up to 1 5 foot square in between you and them. Pretty great for fighting someone and staying outside of their reach. Also great because if an enemy moves through moves out of your threatened square. So with a normal weapon, your threatened squares are just a 5 foot ring around you, basically. With the reach, it is now the 10 foot ring around you. So if they exit one of those squares, like going away from you, you hit them as a reaction, or can attempt to hit them as a reaction. It's pretty helpful. Special weapon with a special property has unusual rules governing its use, explained in the weapons description. See special weapons later in the section. I'm not too sure what that is, honestly. Thrown. If weapon has a thrown property, you can throw the weapon to make a ranged attack. If the weapon is a melee weapon, you use the same ability modifier for the attack roll and damage roll that you would for using a melee attack with the weapon. For example, if you throw a hand axe, you use your strength, but if you throw a dagger, you can either use your strength or dexterity since the dagger has the finesse property. Two-handed. Obviously, you have to use two-handed. It means you cannot have anything else in either one of those hands. Versatile. This weapon can be used with one or two hands. The damage value in parentheses appears with the property. The damage when the weapon is used with two hands to make a melee attack. And you get your improvised weapons, which is you rip a leg off a chair and attempt to use it as a weapon. That's an improvised weapon. Normally it'd be a club, but or this is or a dead goblin. That's an improvised weapon. So you can hit a motherfucker with another motherfucker, but it's counted as an improvised weapon. And then you got special things like silvered and whatnot. So now it talks about you got your adventuring gear. This is all of the things that you could buy to carry around with you, just for shits and giggles, or maybe you need it. You got caltrops, you got a glass bottle, a book, block and tackle, bells, barrel, baskets, crowbars, hammers, water skins. If you feel like you can need it, you can buy it and you can bring it with you. It's usually how it works. So that's all of that stuff. And this goes into the description of what it all is, or what and how to use all of it effectively, basically. Let's go down to our tools. As a rogue, we are proficient with the thieves' tools. And that's pretty much it for now. We can get more stuff later on. There might have been some proficiency from being a charlatan. I don't remember. Not important. Thieves' Tools. A set of Thieves' Tools which we are given in our equipment under the Rogue page. So we get one, but it is £1 and it's worth 25 gold. Thieves' Tools. This set of tools includes a small file, a set of lockpicks, a small mirror mounted on a metal handle, a set of narrow-bladed scissors, and a pair of pliers. Proficiency with these tools lets you add your proficiency bonus to any ability checks you make, disarming traps or opening locks. And then down here is kind of a nice example of a Thieves' Tools set. Somewhere around here. So yeah. So that tells you, like, let's say you need a mirror for something. Like, oh, I'm going to pull the mirror out of my Thieves' Tools set and use that for this, or use that for that. You can do it. Just remember what you have, and you can use it accordingly for whatever you want. You got mounts, you got tack, harness, drawn vehicles, trade goods, waterborne vehicles. All this stuff can be important to you or not. Food, what it's worth. Services. Not that kind of services, but services nonetheless. A coach between towns or within a city, how much it costs. Hiring people, skilled and unskilled, untrained messengers, road and gate tools, ship passage, 1 silver piece per mile. With a sailor feet or the sailor background, you can do that for free. You got trinkets. These are literally just random items. Just random items. Why, it's on the D100 table. Okay, now we gotta talk about customization. So if you plan at some point to multi-class, which is, say you don't want to be a rogue, like a 100% rogue, it's perfectly fine. You are going to miss out on some things because you're not going to make it all the way to the bottom of the rogue tree, which has some of the, which in all the trees, it has some of the better skills. But if you want a multi-class, for some reason, you can. There are just some prerequisites. Like for Barbarian, you need a Strength of 13, Bard a Charisma of 13, which our Charisma is 15, so if we wanted to cross-class into a Bard or multi-class into a Bard, we can. And then for some of these, there are Strength or Dexterity, Monk, Strength or Dexterity and Wisdom, Paladin, Strength and Charisma. It really just depends. And it tells you how XP works, how hit points and hit dice work, bonus proficiencies, which you probably will be getting. This is talking about class features that I think that like don't stack or something like that. Unarmored defenses from like if multiple classes have an armored defense, like Barbarian and Monks, they don't stack. You only get it once. Extra attacks don't stack. This is how your spell slots work for multi-classing. Now we talk about your feats. It's up to your DM on how many feats you get at the start and how many feats you continue to get. Different rules. And some of them are pretty great. Like this one. Crossbow Expert. Wow. You ignore the loading quality of crossbows, which means now if you're allowed to make multiple attacks per action, with Crossbow Expert, you can, no matter what crossbow you're wielding, because you ignore the loading property. It no longer takes you all your action to attack and load once. Being within 5 feet normally causes disadvantage when using a ranged weapon. With Crossbow Expert, it does not. You can still attack with a ranged weapon within 5 feet of somebody. And when you use the attack action and attack with a one-handed weapon, you can use a bonus action to attack with a loaded hand crossbow you are holding. So you can sit there and have a crossbow in one hand and a weapon in the other, fight, 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 bam, and shoot someone in the face as a bonus action. Some of these are great. Some of these are a little odd, but some of them are great. Like, or currently for my, for the character I'm playing, my ranger, I have the alert feat, which gives me a +5 bonus to my initiative, which makes it more possible for me to attack first. Cannot be surprised while conscious, which is great for countering rogues. Other creatures don't gain advantage on attack rolls against you as a result of being hidden from you. Also great for countering rogues. Alert is a great skill for countering rogues. As a rogue, it doesn't really help us out that much. Mostly, it helps us with the bonus initiative and going first. What else does my character have? It's running. No, it's around here somewhere. There are feats for giving you proficiency with armors that you don't have. Can be very helpful for some people, especially spellcasters. Sharpshooter. I just picked this one up. As a ranger, Sharpshooter is great. You've mastered ranged weapons and can make shots and others find impossible. You gain the following benefits. Attacking at long range doesn't impose disadvantage on your ranged weapons attacks. So, what that means is all ranged weapons and ones that can be thrown have two ranges. You have your, what I like to call your max effective range, which means you can easily, like let's say I'm using a longbow. The max effective range on a longbow is 150 feet. I can easily, no problem, make a 150-foot shot. Not a problem. Then you have your max range, the max range that bow can fire. Longbow, 600 feet, which means between 150 and 151 and 600, I take disadvantage on trying to hit my target. Because I am now, instead of just aiming right at it and firing, I have to arc it, I have to counter for wind and distance and all this other stuff. So I have disadvantage. With Sharpshooter, I can now shoot my bow 600 feet, no problem. No issue. No disadvantage, no nothing. Great. Your ranged weapon attacks ignore half cover and 3/4 cover. Normally, if you're attacking a target who is hiding partially behind a wall or partially ducking down behind a table, has a hostage, they are considered in cover, and it's harder to hit them without hitting the hostage or whatever. With Sharpshooter, does not matter. As long as I can see at least 1/4 of their body, I can hit them with no extra challenge. And before you make an attack with a ranged weapon that you are proficient with, you can choose to take a -5 penalty to the attack roll. And if you hit, it does 10 extra damage. Right now, my ranger has a +10 to all of his ranged attacks. I can take a -5, no problem. And then +10 damage with every shot. Does not bother me. Another thing is I took the tough feat. Your hit point maximum increases by an amount equal to twice your level when you gain this feat. Whenever you gain a level thereafter, your hit point maximum increases by 2. This is an extra 2 hit points every level for a total of +40 extra hit points at max level. Mostly it's a just in case for my character. Like, his whole thing is about being far enough away from the enemy where he's not going to be hit, but just in case he's got that extra health. And they have a spell sniper version of the Sharpshooter. Doesn't give you the bonus damage, but it gives you the extra range and accuracy. Great. Chapter 7 is where it talks about all of this stuff. Your ability scores and modifiers, advantage and disadvantage, proficiency bonus. I feel like I pretty DC, your difficulty, the difficulty of doing something. It's explained here on what it means. Nearly impossible, 30. This is the skills that all of your attributes go into. and it goes into all this detail on how to play the game even better. Now, if we were playing a casting class, then we would have spells to choose from and spell slots. And how that works is, so this chapter here talks about spells. What a spell is, what spell slots are, cantrips, rituals, casting, components. Verbal is obviously spoken, somatic is gestures with your hands, material is items you use to focus the spell through. There are different durations, how long it takes to cast a spell. Instantaneous is concentration. Different ways to cast spells, the different shapes the spell takes: lines, cones, cubes, spheres, cylinders. The star here represents the point of origin. You can make a cube from any point of origin, a sphere, line. Targets, areas of effects. What all that stuff is. Your saving throws, attack rolls, combining the effects for better. So you have spells that each class can learn: cleric spells, bard spells, druid spells, paladin spells, ranger, sorcerer, wizard, warlock, so on. These are the spells that can learn, the level of the spell, and also the level of the spell slot needed to cast the spell. Again, that is if you are playing a spell class or a spellcasting class, which this character we made is not. But this is the basic of creating a character in Dungeons & Dragons 5e. Down here it talks about each spell and what they do, like how long it takes to cast, the range, the components, the duration. It breaks it down here. But again, we're not playing that. So here is where, we're pretty much done with the book for right now. Here, you talk about your weapons, your attack bonus, damage type. So let's say the rapier attack bonus is a finesse weapon. So we would get our dexterity modifier of a +3. We are proficient with that weapon, so we get a +2. So that is a +5 to the attack. The damage is piercing, and I think it says like 1d6, so it would be like 1d6 piercing damage plus your dexterity of 3. So that's how you do damage. Do the same thing with you put a dagger down here and something else down there, like a bow or something. That is how I personally create a character. And I can always go into more detail. I can always use less detail. I can always make another class if I want to. But this is just the basics of creating a level 1 character my way. So, if anybody has any questions, I am probably going to post this video onto YouTube. Don't know why. I'm not very popular anywhere, but I will. So if anybody wants to watch this video again on YouTube, it'll be there. If anybody has any questions, there's a comment section. There's plenty of other ways to reach out to me. So, I will catch you guys next time. Maybe next time we'll make another character. Later.